Welcome back to the Birth Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Hoff, labor nurse, prenatal coach, and mom of two. Today, we're diving into one of the most important and often misunderstood tools in your birth prep toolbox, the birth plan. But this episode isn't just about filling out a checklist. It's about avoiding some common mistakes that set you up for disappointment and missed communication. By the end of this episode, you'll understand that a birth plan is not like ordering your desired birth experience from a menu. You can't just say no Pitocin at the hospital like you'd say no pickles at a restaurant. In this episode, you'll learn the difference between a birth plan, what you hope will happen, and a birth vision, how you want to feel during your birth. Your birth vision won't control everything, but it will help you stay calm and think clearly, even if things don't go the way you expected. So let's talk about where the idea of a birth plan actually came from and what it was meant to be before it got boiled down into a checklist of do's and don'ts. The concept of a birth plan started gaining traction in the 1960s and 70s during the natural birth movement. This was a time when birth was becoming more and more medicalized, especially in hospitals. Routine interventions like forceps deliveries, episiotomies, and automatic anesthesia were standard. Birthing people often had little say in what happened to their bodies during labor. It was very much lie back and let the professionals take over. So the birth plan. It wasn't originally about control. It was about agency. It was a way to say, hey, I want to be a part of the conversation here. I want to understand what's happening and make choices that reflect my values. It was meant to restore autonomy, encourage informed decision-making, and create space for collaborative communication. By the 1980s, doulas and childbirth educators began formalizing the idea. They used birth plans as tools to help expectant parents prepare, not just physically, but emotionally, and to make sure those preferences were talked about ahead of time. The goal was never to hand in a list of demands and expect the birth team to follow it to the letter. It was a starting point for reflection and consent. Now let's talk about some of the influential voices who helped shape this idea. Because like many parts of birth history, it's a mix of groundbreaking insight and problematic context. One early influence was Dr. Grantley Dick Reed, who wrote Childbirth Without Fear in 1942. He's often credited with inspiring the natural birth movement by arguing that pain in childbirth was made worse by fear, and that if women could relax and trust their bodies, birth would be less painful. But let's be honest, he was also a bit of a chauvinist. His views about women's roles were deeply rooted in outdated patriarchal ideas, and much of his writing doesn't exactly honor birthing people as full decision makers. So while he helped spark an important shift, we shouldn't put him on a pedestal. Thankfully, other pioneers carried the conversation forward in more empowering ways. Sheila Kitzinger, a British social anthropologist and fierce birth advocate, was one of the earliest and strongest voices for humanizing childbirth. She believed deeply in informed choice and saw the birth plan as a way to restore dignity and power to the birthing person. One of her most favorite quotes is, "Birth isn't something we suffer, but something we actively do and exult in." She also said, "The way a woman gives birth can affect how she feels about herself for the rest of her life. And isn't that the truth?" Penny Simkin, a doula and educator here in the US, took things a step further by helping to popularize birth plans as practical tools. But she emphasized that they weren't directives. They were conversation starters. She said the birth plan is a tool for communication, not control. Its value lies in the discussion it sparks between the mother and her caregiver. She also reminded us that women remember their birth experiences all their lives, and those memories can powerfully affect their self-esteem, relationships, and parenting. Then there's Ina May Gaskin, the legendary midwife who founded the Farm Midwifery Center. She wasn't specifically tied to the birth plan movement, but she was a massive force in reclaiming birth as a normal, sacred, and powerful life event, not a medical emergency waiting to happen. One of her most well-known lines is, "If a woman doesn't look like a goddess during labor, then someone isn't treating her right." And of course, your body is not a lemon. You are not a machine. The creator is not a careless mechanic. Ina May's words are so affirming because they bring us back to what matters most: trust in our bodies, in the process, and in our right to be respected and heard. So when you hear the term birth plan, I want you to remember this. It's not about controlling every detail. It's not about handing in a paper that your care team will magically follow. And it's definitely not about listing no Pitocin like you're saying 86 the pickles on a burger order. It's about thinking through what you value, understanding your choices, and learning how to stay emotionally and mentally present so that you can lead your experience even when things don't go according to plan. Because birth is unpredictable, but how prepared you feel, that's the part in your hands. So let's talk about why most birth plans miss the mark. The idea of creating a birth plan sounds empowering, and it can be. It's a way to explore your preferences, think through your options, and communicate what matters most to you. But too often, the birth plan becomes either a rigid checklist or an afterthought. When that happens, the very tool designed to center you in your birth experience can actually backfire. A birth plan isn't the magic script for a perfect birth. It's not a guarantee, it's a guide. When done thoughtfully, it helps you show up for your birth feeling prepared, empowered, and able to respond, not react, when things change. Let's walk through 5 of the most common mistakes people make when creating a birth plan, why they're problematic, and how to avoid them. Mistake number 1, treating the plan like a to-do list. One of the most common traps is approaching the birth plan as a rigid checklist, almost like a wedding itinerary. Everything is thought out, scripted, and timed. While planning can feel reassuring, this approach can set you up for emotional distress if labor veers off course, and most labors do in some way. People often internalize deviations from their plan as personal failures, which can leave emotional scars long after the baby arrives. Birth is unpredictable. Even the most beautifully written plan won't account for every curveball. If your cervix doesn't dilate on schedule, or if the epidural becomes necessary after hours of unmedicated labor, it doesn't mean you failed. It means your body and your baby are doing something unique, and your job is to respond with love, flexibility, and informed choice. To avoid the common mistake of treating your birth plan like a to-do list, focus on birth preferences rather than a fixed plan. Use language like I prefer or if possible instead of absolutes like I will or I won't. This subtle shift helps you stay anchored in your values without becoming attached to a specific sequence of events. It also gives your medical team room to collaborate with you in real time, not just follow instructions from a static document. Mistake number 2, using the plan to avoid what scares you. Some people use the plan to declare what they don't want. While it's important to know what you hope to avoid, this strategy can sometimes come from a place of unprocessed fear. Instead of working through anxiety, the plan becomes a form of denial. Like if it's on paper, it won't happen. But unacknowledged fear doesn't disappear. It often surfaces in labor when your thinking brain goes offline and your body is flooded with adrenaline. That's when you might feel panic, freeze, or feel like you're spiraling if something you swore wouldn't happen becomes necessary. And in those moments, you'll need coping tools and a mindset that can hold space for the unexpected, not just a plan that says no. Instead of avoiding your fears, get curious about them. Why does the thought of an IV or a C-section bother you? What past experiences or stories are influencing that fear? Working with a prenatal coach, doula, or trauma-informed provider can help you unpack those layers and make peace with possibilities you hope to avoid. You may still list your preferences, but you'll do it from a place of clarity, not panic. Mistake number 3, assuming the medical team will just follow it. Some people hand over their birth plan expecting it to be followed like a Starbucks order. But birth is not a transaction. It's a dynamic, collaborative event. Your provider isn't fulfilling an order. They're a clinical decision maker with their own training, concerns, and constraints. The assumption that your birth plan will be followed to the letter can lead to deep disappointment. You may feel dismissed or blindsided if a provider recommends something that's against the plan. It also doesn't account for team-based care. Your provider may not be the one on call, and nurses, midwives, and residents may all play a role in your care. The fix? Treat your plan as a conversation starter. Bring it to a prenatal visit and say, I'd love to talk through some of my birth preferences with you. Ask open-ended questions like, how do you typically approach X, Y, or Z? Or what would make this plan more workable from your perspective? That way, your team becomes a part of the process. This will also help you practice having a conversation about your preferences in a relaxed environment so that if you have to have a similar conversation when the pressure is high, you already feel comfortable doing so. Mistake number 4, skipping the plan entirely and just trusting your provider or doula. On the flip side, some people go in the opposite direction. They don't make a birth plan at all. Maybe they feel overwhelmed, or maybe they really like their provider and just want to go with the flow. And while trusting your provider is important, blind trust can be risky, especially if you haven't had clear conversations about your values, communication preferences, or how decisions will be made during labor. Equally risky is expecting your doula to be your voice. Your doula is there to support you emotionally and physically, not speak for you. And most importantly, your doula isn't you. You're the one who built the relationship with your provider. You are the one who gets to ask the questions, express your needs, and make decisions. When a doula takes over that role, it can actually create confusion or even concern within your birth team. It may give the impression that you're not capable of advocating for yourself, or worse, that you're being pressured into choices that aren't your own. Without preparation, it's easy to freeze in the moment. You might nod along or agree to something you didn't fully understand just to keep things moving. And that's how birth trauma can happen. Not necessarily because something went medically wrong, but because you felt powerless or like things were being done to you and not with you. To avoid that, focus on building informed trust, not passive trust. Ask your provider how they typically handle common interventions. Talk to them about how they communicate in high pressure situations. Use a birth plan not as a script, but as a tool to share your values and start those conversations early. Birth will always hold some surprises, but when you're mentally and emotionally prepared, you're more likely to feel grounded, respected, and fully present no matter how things unfold. Mistake number 5, letting the plan replace communication. It's easy to assume that a birth plan will just speak for itself. But the truth is, handing over a sheet of paper and expecting your birth team to read and know how to follow it, especially during a busy shift, isn't really realistic. If you haven't talked through what's on the plan, ideally before labor begins, it can actually hurt communication instead of helping it. For example, a nurse might skim your plan and assume that if you're experiencing a lot of pain and you wrote no cervical checks, they may avoid offering one, even if knowing your dilation or the baby's position could really be helpful in the moment. Or they might misunderstand a bullet point because there's no context. And when things are moving quickly, misinterpretation can lead to missed opportunities for care that aligns with your true preferences. To avoid this, think of your birth plan as a living tool, not a final set of instructions. Share it early with your provider so you can talk through it together. Review it with your birth coach, support person, or doula, and practice how you'll talk about your preferences in real time. Think of it as less of a handout and more like talking points that you learn to speak from. That way, you're not just handing over your wishes, you're owning them. When used this way, your plan becomes a bridge to better communication, not a wall that shuts it down. So now that we've talked about how to use the birth plan the right way as a living, flexible communication tool, you might be wondering, but what about all the things I can't plan for? That's where your birth vision comes in. Unlike a birth plan, which focuses on what you hope will or won't happen, a birth vision is about how you want to feel during your birth experience. Calm, confident, connected, supported, even if things don't go exactly as expected. It's a powerful way to anchor yourself emotionally, so you're not just making decisions from a list, but from a place of inner clarity and strength. Let's talk about what that looks like and why it may actually be the most important part of your preparation. So, when we talk about creating a birth vision, we're not just imagining a dream birth for the sake of wishful thinking. We're doing something much more intentional. We're laying the emotional groundwork for how you want to show up during your birth experience, no matter what path it takes. But here's the really fascinating part: there's actual science behind why this works. Visualization isn't just a mind trick. It's a proven psychological technique that athletes, performers, and even trauma survivors use to prepare their minds and bodies for high stress or high stakes moments. And it can be just as powerful during birth. Let's take a look at the psychology behind visualization and how practicing your birth vision can literally train your brain and your nervous system to stay calm, focused, and grounded when it matters most. Visualization works because the brain doesn't fully distinguish between real experiences and vividly imagined ones. When you mentally rehearse something in detail, especially with emotional and physical cues, you activate the same neural pathways used in real-life experiences. This technique has been proven in sports psychology, trauma therapy, and performance coaching, and it's just as powerful in birth preparation. When people visualize themselves moving through labor feeling safe, grounded, calm, and in control, they're wiring those emotional and physiological responses into the body. It's like giving your nervous system a muscle memory of strength and steadiness to access when birth begins. So when you repeatedly visualize yourself moving through labor feeling safe, calm, and in control, you're not just daydreaming. You're building real emotional muscle memory. You're giving your nervous system something to return to when the intensity of labor kicks in. But for that vision to truly support you in birth, it needs to be grounded, not in things that you hope others will do, but in things that you can control. Your mindset, your breath, the way you respond to challenges, that's what keeps the vision strong, even when things around you shift. Let's talk about how to create a birth vision that stays anchored in your power, so no matter what's happening in the room, you are still the one leading your birth experience. Unlike a birth plan, which often focuses on external details and logistics, a birth vision is about your internal experience. It's not about scripting what everyone else will do to create your ideal birth experience. It's about training your body and mind to return to a feeling of emotional safety no matter what's happening around you. When creating this vision, focus on what you can control: your breathing rhythm, the mantras or affirmations you repeat, the mental image of your body opening with each contraction, moving into positions that are comfortable for you and help your baby move through the birth canal, the sense of warmth, focus, or strength within your body, and communicating clearly with your birth team. And most importantly, let's talk about your protective bubble. The bubble is your imagined boundary, an emotional and energetic shield that allows you to stay grounded and calm in your internal world. It protects you from disruptions, a harsh tone, chaotic energy in the room, or your provider's rushed demeanor. You remain calm, centered, and safe in your bubble unless and until you need to come out of it to make a decision that truly matters. That moment is intentional, not reactive. And that's where your protective bubble becomes a game changer. It gives you a safe space to return to over and over again, no matter what's going on around you. You don't have to absorb the stress in the room or react to every shift in energy. You stay centered and you only step out of that bubble when a clear decision needs to be made. But let's be real. Birth is full of surprises. So the next step is learning how to carry that same calm, grounded feeling from your ideal birth vision into situations you didn't plan for. Because the real power of this work isn't controlling what happens, it's in preparing your nervous system to stay steady and clear when things don't go according to plan. Let's talk about how to apply your birth vision in those moments so that you can stay in your power even when birth takes an unexpected turn. The power of visualization doesn't come from picturing a perfect birth. It comes from training your nervous system to stay in that internal, calm bubble when things don't go as planned. This is where your vision becomes a tool for flexibility, not fantasy. You can practice carrying your bubble with you into less than ideal scenarios. Visualize yourself calmly breathing through a cervical check while staying inside your bubble. Imagine your body staying soft and steady, even as a provider offers an intervention you didn't expect. Picture yourself maintaining your composure, using your rehearsed phrases to ask clarifying questions, while still anchored in that safe internal space. When you've mentally rehearsed these responses, they become more accessible when you need them. You're not just hoping you'll stay calm, you've trained for it. So why does this help you show up for yourself in birth? Labor can be unpredictable. When you've done this kind of internal work, creating a vision based on your emotional regulation, not external control, you're more likely to feel empowered, not overwhelmed. You can adapt, advocate, and participate in the process without losing yourself in fear, panic, and confusion. This is how you truly show up for yourself in birth. Not by making everything go exactly as imagined, but by anchoring yourself so deeply in your power and peace that even when birth surprises you, you don't lose yourself in the process. Now I want to take you through a quick reflection exercise. If you're driving or multitasking, just listen along and come back to this when you can sit quietly. But if you're in a space where you can pause and really focus, Go ahead and close your eyes. Take a deep breath in through your nose and let it out slowly through your mouth. Again, in and out. Let your shoulders soften. Unclench your jaw. Let the tension melt down your neck, into your arms, your fingertips, down your back, into your hips and thighs, and all the way through your feet. Let your breath move easily now. No effort, just being. Now bring your awareness inside, into the still, quiet space of your body. And imagine there's a wiser part of you, a deeper part of you, your higher self, the part of you that already knows how to do this, the part of you that holds deep wisdom, deep strength, and deep calm. You ask this part of yourself one gentle question. Show me my birth. You don't need to force anything. You don't need to make sense of it. You're just observing what comes up. You may see colors, images, people, light. You may not see anything at all, and that's okay. Let yourself feel whatever wants to rise. There may be no context, just presence. Observe it with softness and curiosity. No judgment, no fear, just witnessing. Let your vision unfold. What is the energy of the space around you? Are you still? Are you in motion? What are you feeling? What is your body doing? Is there a rhythm, a sound, a sense of connection? Let it all play out gently before you. This is your experience, guided by your inner knowing. No right, no wrong, just truth. Now hold that image softly in your mind. Let it imprint into your heart as if you're placing a bookmark in your soul. And slowly, gently, begin to return. Bring your awareness back to your breath. Notice your body again. Wiggle your fingers, your toes, and when you're ready, open your eyes. Now take a moment to reflect. Gently ask yourself, what specifically do I want from this experience? Why is that important to me? Or try this. What is the highest purpose of that for me? That's a lovely question that my mentor, Neri Life Choma, asks. I love that question. Another question, what's one small step I can take to move closer to this vision? Who needs to be on board with this? What resources do I already have? Knowledge, support, or inner strength? Is this vision achievable? Do I know others who've done it? And finally, how could I experience something unexpected and still have a powerful, beautiful birth? This is how you start to build a birth vision that supports your nervous system, not just your preferences. It's not about controlling what happens. It's about preparing yourself to meet it with clarity, grace, and strength. Now, as you start thinking through your birth preferences, you might notice that certain interventions make you feel a little uneasy, maybe even tense, and that's totally normal. And instead of skipping over those parts or writing something like "I refuse" next to them, try to pause and get curious. Ask yourself gently, what about this makes me uncomfortable? Is it connected to something I've been through before? Is it the fear of the unknown? Or maybe something I heard from a friend or saw in a birth story online? Whatever it is, don't judge it, just explore it. Here are a few ways to start working through those feelings. Journal it out. Write down your fears and then try reframing them with facts or compassionate truths. You don't need to sugarcoat anything. You're just trying to understand where those feelings are coming from. Visualize yourself responding calmly. If that intervention did become necessary, how would you want to handle it? What would it look like to stay in your bubble and feel grounded through that experience? Learn about it. Sometimes discomfort fades when we try to understand why something is used, what your options really are, and how you can stay in the driver's seat even when a medical tool or intervention becomes a part of your story. And if you ever feel stuck, you don't have to figure it out alone. You can always book a free birth vision call with me at kellyhoff.com. I'd love to talk you through whatever's coming up and help you move forward with more clarity and confidence. This work isn't about eliminating fear, it's about facing it with support, compassion, and strategy. Now, once you've explored your vision and started getting curious about your emotional responses, you might be thinking, okay, but how do I actually put all of this together into a birth plan? Great question, because yes, using a template can be super helpful, but the way you approach it makes all the difference. Let's talk about how to use a birth plan template in a way that actually supports your emotional readiness, not just your logistics. Now, if your goal is to have an unmedicated or natural birth, that's absolutely valid, and your birth plan should reflect that. But here's the part that often gets overlooked. Understand how you feel about the tools and interventions that might become a part of your story. Because if the first time you really think about Pitocin or a cervical check is while you're deep in labor, when things are intense and fast moving, that's when fear can take over. And here's why that matters so much. When fear takes over, it's not just emotional, it's physical. Your body starts releasing stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. And those hormones can actually interfere with labor, slowing it down or even stopping the process completely. If you want to dive deep into the science behind that, go check out Season 2, Episode 8 of this podcast. It's called The Negative Influence of Stress on Labor and What You Can Do About It. I break it all down there. But the key takeaway is this. Doing the emotional work ahead of time doesn't just make your birth plan stronger, it makes you stronger. You're not just preparing a list of preferences, you're preparing your nervous system. And this is something I've witnessed over and over again in my coaching practice. Real empowered consent, the kind where you feel totally confident saying yes or no, requires a regulated nervous system. Consent isn't just about giving permission. It's about feeling safe enough to ask questions, understand what's being offered, and make decisions without pressure or panic. And that kind of clear-headed decision-making, it only happens when you're not stuck in fight or flight. This is exactly why emotional processing matters. Let's go a little deeper into that with one of my favorite analogies, training like an athlete. There's a reason elite athletes don't just visualize themselves winning. They rehearse the entire game, especially the tough moments. They prepare for missed shots, surprise fouls, and momentum shifts. Because they know when the pressure's on, the brain and body will default to whatever they've practiced. And birth works the same way. If you've only imagined your ideal birth and ignored the what ifs, then when something unexpected happens, you might freeze, shut down, or feel like your power is slipping away. But if you've done the emotional prep, if you've felt the fear, explored it, processed it, and learned how to stay grounded, you're way more likely to respond with clarity and confidence. This is how you keep your thinking brain accessible. And this is how you stay in your protective bubble until you need your thinking brain. This is how you make empowered decisions that reflect your values, even when the plan changes. So as you work through your birth preferences, remember this. You're not just preparing a document, you're preparing your nervous system. You're practicing how to show up in your full power no matter how your birth unfolds. And that, my friend, is the real work. Now, let's build on this even more. Let's talk about how birth is more like a performance than a plan, and how training your mind and body to stay grounded is the real secret to feeling confident, capable, and supported on game day. When I say birth is a performance, I don't mean it's a show or something to impress people with. I mean it in the same way that an athlete shows up on game day or a dancer steps onto the stage. It's a peak mind-body experience, one that unfolds in real time under pressure and is influenced by your mental state, your environment, and the support around you. Your body already knows how to birth, but just like a natural athlete still trains for a championship, your body and mind benefit from preparation, especially when the goal is to move through the experience with confidence, flexibility, and power. So let's bring this full circle. You are not just having a baby. You're stepping into one of the most intense transformational events of your life. And if we can agree that birth is not just a medical event, it's emotional, physical, and a spiritual performance, then it only makes sense that you'd want to train for it. So how does coaching help? Every elite athlete has a coach, not because they don't know what they're doing, but because talent alone isn't enough. They need strategy, they need mindset training, they need someone to help them anticipate the unexpected and build resistance for the hard moments. And that's what prenatal coaching does for birth. It helps you understand how your nervous system responds to pressure, practice staying grounded when the plan changes, build communication skills so you can lead your birth experience, identify and process fears that could hijack your power in labor, and rehearse how you want to feel, not just what you want to avoid. When birth starts to feel overwhelming or unpredictable, coaching is what keeps you in your center. It's what lets you respond instead of react. And that makes all the difference. Okay, so why not just rely on your provider or doula? Great question. Here's the thing. Your hospital OB or midwife is your clinical expert. They're focused on safety, medical care, and hospital protocols. Their job is incredibly important, but it doesn't include preparing you emotionally, mentally, or psychologically for birth. Your doula is your sideline support. They'll be with you during labor, offering comfort and encouragement. But if you haven't done the inner work ahead of time, it's easy to expect them to speak for you or lead the experience, and that's not their job. A birth class? That's your playbook. It gives you a map of what might happen, but it doesn't train you specifically based on your fears, your goals, and your personality. And that's where coaching comes in. Coaching is what brings all of those pieces together and makes them work for you. You're the one giving birth. You're the one in the field. You are the star athlete of this experience. So why would you step into that moment without the kind of focused preparation that actually helps you own it? No athlete walks onto the field without a coach. No performer steps on the stage without rehearsing. And you shouldn't walk into your birth hoping that your birth support team will carry you through. So what if you had a coach? Someone who helps you process your fears and rewire limiting beliefs. Learn how to self-regulate and stay grounded under pressure. Rehearse conversations with your providers so you don't freeze. Understand hospital systems and how to work with them confidently. Build a birth vision that feels aligned, powerful, and real. What if you had someone in your corner before labor begins, so that when it does, you're ready to lead? And maybe you're sitting there right now thinking, wow, that actually sounds like what I've been looking for. If that's you, I want you to know that you don't have to figure this out on your own. This is the work I do. This is the work I love. And I'd be honored to help you prepare for your birth emotionally, mentally, and practically. You can book a free birth vision call with me at kellyhoff.com. There's no pressure, no commitment, just a chance to talk about what's on your heart, what's been holding you back, and what support might look like moving forward. Because you are the star of this story, and you deserve the kind of preparation that meets your power. If this episode spoke to you, I want you to sit with that for a minute. You are not too much for wanting a powerful birth. You're not naive for hoping it can be beautiful. And you're not alone in wanting to feel prepared, calm, and in control. You are exactly where you need to be. And the fact that you're even listening to this, that's already a sign that you're showing up for yourself. So keep going. If you loved this episode, share it with a friend who's pregnant, leave a review on Apple or Spotify, and don't forget to head to kellyhoff.com if you're ready to explore coaching or even just to say hi and start the conversation. Until next time, keep trusting yourself, keep building your vision, and remember, you're not just planning for birth, you're preparing to own it. And I'm here with you every step of the way.